Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Yep. It's a bit of a soggy one.
Yeah, we were warned and the rains definitely came down last night.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting, especially if you're in the Belize City area. Part of the night was also.
That was lovely.
I know we had lights out for a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know, it felt very long to me.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
No, and it was in fact, I think the entire city that had a blackout last night in the middle of the rain. You had the lightning flash every now and again to help you find things.
Oh yeah, for sure, I know. I had to break out some candles. And, it would have been very romantic except I was by myself, but.
Well, my cousin was saying her toddler thought that it was happy birthday time, so he kept on blowing out the candles.
Okay.
So
good.
imagine that fun.
Yeah, I forgot those days. But
No, but of course it is a Thursday morning. We don't know what today's going to shape up to look like when it comes to the weather, but we'll be giving you that weather forecast in just a bit.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, a lot has been going on as usual. And we have been giving, as normal, we've been giving you the latest updates when it comes to the COVID-19 figures. Of course, yesterday, the Ministry of Health and Wellness did release their report again, again, consistent with what we've been seeing over the past few weeks. Over 200 confirmed cases again, and unfortunately 2 deaths yesterday.
Yeah.
These numbers are still quite concerning, quite frightening. But we will see what, if any, actions are they going to take to mitigate the ongoing spread. But that's where we are as of today.
Yeah, definitely. Keep on monitoring. And we know that it was discussed in Cabinet, and there were some decisions made there. Of course, getting full clarity as to what the next phase is going to be. We don't have those details as yet. I think the key part here is remembering that we are all at risk for COVID-19. We are still seeing about 200 cases a day, although the health professionals keep on reminding us that it will be about 2 weeks before we see the impact of the enhanced restrictions that we saw over the past 2 weeks.
Yes, absolutely, and it's interesting to watch the international developments as well, both in relation to the vaccination efforts as well as what countries are doing in order to try to keep their population safe in the best way that they know how. We've been seeing an increasing amount of and different forms of vaccine mandates. One of the interesting articles that I was reading yesterday was talking about the state of California in the U.S., which was going to be requiring vaccination to enter most indoor spaces, restaurants for sure,
Yeah.
Which is actually similar to what we've got going on here
Yeah.
right now.
At least with restaurants.
Yeah.
So for dining in options.
Dining in, yeah.
That is what is being prescribed by the Ministry of Health. And for now, it is still government buildings. So people are trying to get their. Did you get your vaccination card shrunk or get the ID
did.
version? You did.
Yeah, and then even after that, I had to like customize it just so that it could fit inside my wallet.
And with the picture as well, I think. These are things that are being rolled out, and it is a matter of being able to ensure that we can maintain safety.
No, absolutely. I think you know, as you know, I've always said, and I think the vaccine is still our best hope right now. And even though we're getting reports of, you know, certain treatments and things are getting being developed in order to combat the symptoms of COVID so that it doesn't have such a bad effect. The vaccine also does that. It's sort of a preemptive sort of method around that.
Yeah.
But as of right now, it's still the safest route to at least avoiding a serious case of COVID-19 and all the complications that can arise therefrom, and which include, you know, unfortunately for several people so far, to include loss of life.
Yeah. And from the pandemic to the endemic that we do have in our country facing crime, two updates. We know that an elderly man and another teen lost their life to violence in the city or in the country. Casman Gill passed away yesterday, a third form student from SJC, who was shot almost 2 months ago. And while he was being treated, and the hope was by the family, the loved ones, and the wider community was that he was going to recover. Unfortunately, it was confirmed that he did pass away as well.
Yes, that's very unfortunate news, of course. And we, first of all, would like to offer all of our condolences to the families and loved ones. And we know that it's, of course, it's an extremely difficult situation, and the entire country has been under, you know, under the stress of the past few weeks. I would say probably since the middle of the summer. We've seen a spike in violence, and particularly in violence against young persons, and we've seen several persons under 18 lose their life to gun violence or gang violence in some way or form. And you're right to call it, you know, like, you know, something that is endemic, that's going on right now. It's almost as violent in its, you know, it's undestructive as COVID-19 in the way that it's claiming people's lives right now.
Yeah.
And we are actually going to talk about that a little bit more on our show later.
Yeah.
But you know, when I got the news last night, I'm sure, you know, like most other people, you know, it was shocking to me, and I was and just like Dwayne Gabriel, and I said it on the show last week. You know, this is a young guy. He went to the same high school as me.
Yeah.
So I can identify.
Yeah.
And it's really, and it's been, and the thing is, it's not the first time, and we've seen something like this. And I can remember even whilst I was in high school, or when I was, you know, younger, and things would like this would happen as well. It would still have a similar effect on me, and you know, you don't want to say, but like, you know, sometimes you feel powerless, and you don't know what to do. You want to think, and then you also feel this sense of fear, because, you know, you fear for your own personal safety, and you think about what if that was me. And you know, like in my, you know, so like in my case, when I could see somebody who was I was in their shoes literally at one point in time, and thinking, you know, that could have been me, or that or I could be next. Then
I think especially with the recent case of Dwayne Gabriel, where it was just kind of running to the shop. We all do that, you know. You just run in to get something. Nobody expects that to be the time that they will be gunned down in that way. So yeah, I think this is going to continue to drive home the point. Again, you know, just an update I think from that we saw in the cabinet brief was talking about having a strategy in place to address the crime situation. Yesterday as well, we got the story of the 75-year-old taxi driver who was killed as well. And when I say get the story, there still are lots of questions left as to why and who especially. But hearing from the Aging Council as well, looking at the two recent murders of elderly persons, it is absolutely sad. You know, Leo Skeen, a lot of people, because if you interact with the airport, may have come in contact with him at some point in time. And when you know someone is working hard to make a living and being and their life coming to an end in this manner, it really just, it's very troubling. And I think we must not allow ourselves to get complacent about these types of crimes.
No, absolutely. And it's kind of like, again, what I said last week about the quote that I had quoted from Dr. West and talking about, as we as a society can't become adjusted to injustice. And I think that that's what, I mean, it's positive to hear that coming out of the cabinet, they're developing a strategy to try to combat this. But of course, it's something that has been an ongoing problem for pretty much a generation.
Yeah.
And, it's going to have to be multifaceted. And I think that one of the things that, you often hear about, people always wonder, like, well, why is there so much violence, and, things weren't always this bad. And people often like to go back to that quote about, it takes a village, and people will say, well, back in the day, everybody was sort of involved in raising children, and everything really was much more community based. And so I think that with that sort of with a recognition of that sort of thing, I think that we have to also remember that, whatever we can do or whatever part we can play in making things better, even if it's just looking out for somebody who's in your neighborhood, literally just looking out for them. Say if somebody passes your house and see, and you notice something suspicious, you can say, hey, don't go there, or I just saw this. It could be looking out for a child that's close to you, and a family member, somebody, a neighbor.
Helping out families too, that are really struggling.
Exactly.
Yeah,
helping with schoolwork, something. Yeah.
Precisely, and I do think that it's part of. You mentioned before powerlessness, and I think we get stuck there very often. We don't think of how we can get involved, and I think for me, one, it starts with keeping the issue on the forefront, that we don't allow ourselves to get relaxed in thinking that this is just how we're going to be, but also, and keep on pressuring for effective strategies to be put in place. But as we said, we're going to have a conversation. We have Dr. Herbert Gale coming up in our first conversation. And so we're going to be talking a bit and putting into perspective the situation of violence in Belize. But there's one more thing I did want to mention. The notice that the Ministry of Transport will now be actively pursuing excessive noise from motor vehicles. Really interesting. And as I watched the feedback online yesterday, clearly people are very happy to hear that, not that this is a new regulation, but that they'll actually be enforcing. And that does include the trucks as well as motorcycles.
Yeah, I know. I saw some of the reaction to that on social media as well, and it was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
And I think that we've all been in a situation before where we've been disturbed, whether we're at work, whether we're at home. Especially like in the days before we were under curfew, and sometimes it would happen at night, and you would be woken up by like a sound of a motorcycle or something like that. So it does seem positive. I'm interested to see how they'll be enforcing it.
That's my question. I was going to say the same thing. How do you enforce it? I'm not sure. But if there is going to be some action made towards it, that's going to be, clearly it's been disturbing. There are some big trucks will make big noises. Is it absolutely necessary? But the motorcycles, especially, we know. We hear it very often in the city as well, and very late at night.
Yeah, and there are certain. I mean, I'm not a car guy or anything. I don't know anything, but I know that there are certain things or attachments. I don't know what you call them, that you can put onto that you put onto like your muffler or your thing to make your car make more noise, like when you rev the engine and stuff. And so that's another thing that I've heard. So that and you hear it sometimes too. Sometimes I'll be hearing a car and I think that it's like a motorcycle, or I think it's a big truck, and then I see it passing and it's like a little Honda Civic or something. But it's got all of it's gotten all of these these attachments to it. So
so those are some of the stories that are coming out from yesterday's newscast. And of course, you can look forward to even more in our newscast at 6 p.m. tonight. But we're going to get moving into our lineup, and we're going to get you started with some motivation for this morning. And that means it's time for our Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Your worth is not a product of your intelligence, your talent, your looks, or how much you have accomplished. Though much of who and what we are changes as we journey through life, our inherent worth remains constant. While the term self-worth is often used interchangeably with self-esteem, the two qualities are inherently different. Self-esteem is the measure of how you feel about yourself at a given moment in time. Your worth, however, is not a product of your intelligence, your talent, your looks, your good works, or how much you've accomplished. Rather, it is an immeasurable and unchanging manifestation of your eternal and infinite oneness with the universe. It represents the cornerstone of the dual foundations of optimism and self-belief. Your worth cannot be taken from you or damaged by life's rigors, yet it can easily be forgotten or even actively ignored. By regularly acknowledging your self-worth, you can ensure that you never forget what an important, beloved, and special part of the universe you are. Our worth comes from our role as distinct individuals, as well as our role as an integral part of something larger than ourselves.
I like that eye opener, and I like that they took they made the distinction between self-esteem and knowing your worth. And I think that one of the main differences, or the main difference, is that your self-esteem, or even your sense of we'll stick with self-esteem. It can change. And and it's dependent on a whole lot of things, because you can have a good day and you feel great and you feel on top of the world, and then you have your days you get out at the wrong side of the bed, your hair looks bad, things go bad at work, blah blah blah, and then you might feel bad about yourself. But that doesn't really have. But the day to day and the things that the ups and downs don't really have anything to do with your sense of self-worth at the end of the day, because that is something that's much more fundamental, much more solid. And that has that if you have established that sense of self or whatever, then that's what can help you get through the bad days.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it does take work, and I do agree with you. I think distinguishing the two is so important, because it's kind of one that grounds you and one that you use to propel yourself. But that is our eye opener for this morning. And with that, we are going to find out about our weather for this morning. And we're going to try to get our forecaster on the line so we can find out just how much rain we can expect, and what we can expect for today and for the next few days. All right, so we're going to just go ahead and read the prepared forecast. So the general situation is a tropical wave is affecting the area.
And over the next 24 hours, we're expecting it to be cloudy with some showers and some periods of rain and thunderstorms over most areas today, but that will be decreasing tonight.
Okay. And so our winds are moving from the east at 5 to 15 knots, and the sea state is light chop.
And for our temperatures, we are expecting highs today of 86 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 89 inland, and 76 up in the hills.
For tonight, we're going to be seeing 78 along the coast, 72 inland, and 68 in the hills.
And our outlook as we head into Friday and the rest of the weekend, we are expecting Friday and Friday night to have a few showers or thunderstorms, and that's going to be happening all around the country.
All right, and the key advisories here: small craft caution is in effect near heavy showers and thunderstorms. And there is a flood watch that remains in effect for flood-prone and low-lying areas. And we want to thank Francisca Wellington for that update this morning. Yeah, I could imagine. I wouldn't want to be out at sea with the showers we saw last night. Did you hear the wind?
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. And then, do listen to that advisory. If you do live in a low-lying or flood-prone area, please make the appropriate preparations if you see it's, if the rain does start going on for quite a while.
All right. And with that, we're going to get moving into our conversations for this morning.
Yep. And as we said earlier, we are going to be continuing our focused discussion on crime and the logistics in the Belize situation, and we're going to be having a conversation with Dr. Herbert Gale, who is an anthropologist, as well as Nelma Mortis Jones, who is an educator and researcher in this social area. We're going to be speaking all about the different facets of the crime situation, and hopefully some recommendations or some optimism for at the end of the conversation, or somewhere in it.
All right, and the second part of our show, World Mental Health Day, is coming up on the 10th, and so we're going to be putting into perspective mental health. Why is it important, and how is COVID affecting people across the country?
And finally, we are going to be checking in with Autism Belize, and they're going to be telling us all about their newest fundraising initiative. It's Pebbles, and they're going to be talking about selling bracelets.
Yeah. So we're going to find out more about this latest effort and what they hope to do with the funds. So that's what we have lined up for you today. 3 interesting conversations. We're going to take that break, but before we do, we got two shout-outs.
Yep. So first, we want to wish a very, very happy birthday to Myrick Marin. So from all of us at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes, we hope you have a great day, Myrick, and enjoy your birthday. And we also want to give a special anniversary shout out to Stephen and Laverne Ferguson.
Look at that lovely picture, of course.
Of course, from part of the Channel 5 family. So they're celebrating their 21st anniversary. So we definitely want to wish you guys a great day and many, many more years of love.
All right. And now we're going to take that break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the situation of crime in the country. So please, thank you.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
We have been a partner with Smart for over 10 plus years. We have a full Smart plan we use as our major driver for our business. We have a service that rolls over in that if you call one and it is busy, it rolls over to the next line. So once you call us, you can get us at any time. Before we got this Smart service, we were paying upwards of nearly $2,000 in phone bills. Since we've had our Smart service, we pay an average of about $600. So we've had tremendous saving, more than 50%. For the businesses, if you want to save money, switch to Smart because it is far more cost effective and the service is excellent.
Smart continues to be innovative in bringing new technology and meaningful savings during these challenging times to businesses across Belize. Sign up for our VoIP technology or broadband packages and save more.
How does the AstraZeneca vaccine work? The vaccine provides support to help your body develop immunity to the virus that causes COVID-19. The body is left with a supply of memory cells that will remember how to fight the virus. It takes a few weeks for the body to produce the antibodies after vaccination. How long does it take to build immunity after taking the first dose of the vaccine? There is protection 14 days after a person's first dose. However, that initial protection may decline over time, which is the reason why it is so important to get the second shot. How long after the first dose should one take the second dose? The second dose should be given between week 8 and week 12. Are there any deaths associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine? There have been no deaths associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine. Vaccines save lives. They remain the safest, most effective, and cost-effective medical tool developed. Increased uptake of the vaccine is the best way to stop this pandemic, save lives, and return to normalcy.
And we're back. And if you're joining us right now, we're just getting our first conversation for this morning started. And as we said just before the break, we are going to be discussing the crime situation in Belize. And we're going to be taking a deeper look at some of the factors which cause crime and looking at a lot of the facets of the situation that the country is facing currently. And we are going to be discussing this, and joining us now via Zoom, we have anthropologist Dr. Herbert Gale, as well as Nelma Mortish Jones, who is an educator, researcher, and doctoral candidate. Good morning.
Morning.
And thank you for joining us. Belize has been facing particularly violent past few months, and one of the most concerning and frightening features of the situation is the amount of young people who have succumbed to gun violence, in particular recently. We've seen at least 9 teenagers lose their lives since the beginning of the summer. And so before we get into some of the socioeconomic factors and different things which contribute to crime, I'm wondering if I can just get a reaction from both of you to the events which have been occurring recently. Like, what's the first thing what would be your first reaction? Dr. Gale, perhaps you can start.
Well, once someone dies, it affects me very, very seriously, because at the end of the day, just the repairs, the loss itself is immense, but the process to repair, the restoration process to the loss of a single life is immense. In fact, sometimes takes up to 15 years. So quite often we underestimate what happens when someone dies. And therefore, whenever that happens, I begin to think of a whole generation, half a generation, actually, to just begin the process of repairing that, and the cycle of violence that's going to kick off from this one, because it is normal for the human. Let me just say it again. It is normal, it is natural for humans to seek revenge. When you see a death, that's the start of a long chain of problems.
And Nelma, what your thoughts on the recent crime situation?
Good morning. Unlike Dr. Gill, I am nearer to the problem, and I have seen how this have traumatized our entire society. I'm glad that he made mention that we have to do a lot of repair, and it's alarming to hear that it's 15 years or more it can take. But it just explained the feuding that is happening on our street. I think way back then we have explained and theorized that the gang war or the gang game that is occurring with us is focusing on men competing with men. And so we refer to it as feud. And so it's basically feuding happening on our streets. I'm not supposed to take an alarmist position, but the velocity of which it is happening, and like you so rightly said, it's a lot of young people, it is traumatizing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that someday we can come together and correct this problem. Well, I don't know if we can correct it, but at least minimize it.
Well, that's where my thoughts are, I think, in this very moment, as I see both of you again. It's been over a decade since the research on social male participation in violence was published, where you took a deep dive into understanding the whys behind why we were facing the situation with gangs and gang violence in this country. There were recommendations made. There were key points identified that could be intervention points to kind of get us, had we started then, a decade later in a better place. How do you feel knowing that you have, no one can really get all the information about the problem, but you started the work, and then here we are today? Dr. Gale?
Oh, all right. Many moons ago, I spoke to a group of 38 politicians at a conference. I won't name the conference. And many thought I was very rude when I told them that if you have a gut feeling, you should be in a toilet rather than in power. Because one of the worst things to do is to operate from the point of gut feelings. Often it is diarrhea. And they didn't take it kindly. They thought, these academics are, as usual, rude. But the bottom line is that research provides us with the broadest and the most structured perspective of a problem once it is done correctly. And it means when we say basic things like violence is the end product or the byproduct of stupid things we are all doing. Don't be offended. It is true. People don't get violent. People are aggressive, but they don't get violent and kill unless it is as a result of you denying them some of their basics, which is such as food, such as a sense of safety, such as having a situation where parenting is so fractured or having no opportunity for training or going to school. You deny anybody those things, you're going to have a mass of bloodshed. And it's not surprising that some countries are going to have an increase in murders as they grapple with COVID, because COVID is going to deny the group that was always suffering even more food, right? And so everything, literally all the problems we're having in the region can be found in the research that we've done. But for me, people are still waiting for a magic word, for somebody to tell them abracadabra or say to them that backways, and then they apply it and they get it done. And that is why a lot of us are using shortcut methods such as states of emergency and all of these things that give us a morphine overnight and we all feel good. And then the people who are applying the morphine gets tired and the murders come back twofold. That's the kind of drama and the kind of worry that I have about the region. Because when I speak to European countries, right, and I speak to businessmen and I speak to other people that I have to work with, they actually apply what is told to them within short order. I mean, when I work with companies call me 2-3 years afterwards and say, thank you, because of you, I've saved millions of US dollars. I still can't get the call from Caribbean governments to say, thanks, Doc, we've done it. What they normally do is if you tell them 10 things, they do the first 2. Then they have a meeting and say, yippee, guess what? We've done the first 2 and we're reaping some benefits, and they stop.
But it's interesting, and I do want to make a note. I was at maybe your last in-person presentation in Belize, the one at the Bliss, and I remember it was just at the start of the cycling of states of emergencies, and you clearly outlined from your research what you'd seen in Jamaica, what happens when you institute state of emergencies, and how the gangs start to spread, and pretty much predicting what we now see today. Yet, we still go back to this as the methodology to be used. Any
but there are two
thoughts on that?
sides. Yeah, but there are two sides to it. The first side of importance is the policy side.
Yeah.
The second side is that you have enough people in each country that endure a state of emergency. You have enough people who believe in it. They are not educated to the damage it does over the medium and long term. So imagine that somebody has cancer and they get some morphine. That's why it's called morphinization. They get some morphine and they feel so good. that they put up their hand and say, nurse, can I get some more morphine? But we're still waiting for the surgery. We're still waiting for the surgery. But the morphine feels so good that you become an addict. And Caribbean people, and let me just name the countries, Jamaica, Trinidad, Belize, 3 most violent countries in the region. All 3 countries are at this stage addicted to morphine. They are addicted to state of emergency. You see, the people who don't get restricted as much, they call for states of emergency. Yes. So we divide ourselves into inner city and outer city. Mm-hmm. And the outer city people want the state of emergency because they're not the ones restricted immediately. Mm-hmm. And then a part of the inner city people want it because the last time it felt good. But at the end of the day, your children still don't have more food. They still don't have a great opportunity to go to school. Their parenting structures are shattered because the parents are all over the place trying to get a shilling. Yes? And the mess is still there.
How much of it, I mean, because I'm glad that you talked about it, that the public gets into, we erupt into all these emotions when we see these crimes, and we start to call for immediate actions. And so the go-to is to dispense the pain medication, give the morphine, as you say, the state of emergency, to say, look, we did something. But my question in moving it beyond that is, what are the implications that happen? We heard from the minister that what they realized is the people who are locked up are not allowed to engage in criminal activity, and those who are on the outside, who didn't get caught up in the sweep of state of emergency, are calming themselves down. They don't want to be identified, just waiting for it to come to an end. But what is the long-term effect here?
All right, so here's what happens. Violence occurs over a 3-tier system and must be repaired over a 3-tier system, just the opposite. So it happens primary, secondary, tertiary, and you fix it tertiary, secondary, primary. So let's see if we fix Belize. All right, so there's an upsurge in violence. What's going to happen naturally is that you're going to have states of emergency or you're going to have suppression. Why? Because if the government does not provide you with this, you are going to be upset with them. So all Caribbean governments are populist. They have to respond to any foolishness you ask for. Please note the word foolishness, nonsense. But you are going to ask for it because you don't know better. So you are going to raise hell that they must do something now. And they must, because they are elected. Mm-hmm. But while they are doing this thing, that simply provides a tertiary, which is, it creates instant stability. There must be a team on the ground working to provide the secondary, which is what? Redeployment of combatants. So if you arrest somebody, if you arrest 100 young men, 100 young men will not stay in prison for the rest of their lives. 99 are going to return to the streets. When they return, they should be within a system such as Cure Violence, something that has somebody who's a mentor assigned to them to get them employed and get them into school or occupied in some way. That's called redeployment. Mm-hmm. Then their little brothers and their sisters and their mothers who depend on them for food, illegal food. Let's go again. Mm-hmm. There's mama, the number one dependent on food from a criminal. Yes, man, I said it this morning. Mm. Then there's sister and little brother. Those 3 are waiting on David. Let's call him David for food. If you don't have the redeployment of combatants, you haven't solved anything. Because as soon as you bat your eyes and as soon as the soldiers and police get tired, they are going to catch and kill. They are going back to work. You have to redeploy them. So there has to be a budget for redeployment. And the little brothers, the sisters, those now have to have life chances so that they're not a dependent and a pressure on the young man who is going to do the catch and kill. Once you do this, you begin the process of long-term healing of a country, which means that you must be opening up your schools. You must be ensuring that boys get an equal or near equal opportunity to go to university or to complete secondary school. You must be also ensuring that you find some system that allow all of these young people to be connected? Why is it that the countries that have mentorship programs and apprenticeship system have murder rates below 2 per 100,000? Every single Caribbean country that's in this problem have a homicide rate exceeding 30 per 100,000. There we go.
No. And one of the things that one of the things that you also mentioned, in particular, to the current circumstances, is the impact of the pandemic. And can you go into a little, or let's unpack that a little bit more, to talk about the features which have, put even more strain on the, let's call it, broken system?
All right. So during a pandemic, what is expected to happen in the first phase of a pandemic is that you should have less gang violence, because as you restrict movement, you are also restricting gang movement. So you're expected to have a downturn in violence. Belize did that, right, by 28%. So you are following textbook. During that time, you are supposed to have higher levels of domestic violence. And by domestic violence, we mean family violence.
Yes.
And you are textbook. You have had an upturn in domestic violence. Okay, now you're in the second phase of COVID, where after 12 to 18 months of a crisis, humans learn to adapt. The gangs have adopted. And now they are kicking up a storm. Because if you look at the fact that in Jamaica, 21% of people can't live, they live from hand to mouth every day. In Belize, you have 47% of people who cannot go for 48 hours without going to work. They have to hustle because your economy is not mature enough. Now, if you don't have a system that addresses that 47%, or even the bottom quintile, the first 20% who have the most immediate crisis, if you don't have a system of distribution, then mama is going to say, Lord, and let me give you a precise statement that comes from Belize. Me can't believe, say me have 3 boy pitney, but a 3 girl me have. That is all your mother say. She don't send David to go kill nobody. She don't send David to go kick up no hell. She just call David a girl. And I'm not being gender insensitive. Please understand, open quote, close quote, because some people are very bummy when it comes to gender. I am saying that mama says, I have no boy, meaning I have no hunter in my clan. Because and mothers say these things when they are hungry. And they call the one daughter and say, come here. Apparently you are the only boy in the house. I'm telling you research words, not the words of Herbert Samuel Gale. And the hell starts because people are hungry.
Yeah, they're in survival mode.
Yes, primal mode.
And
anybody at all who had hurt me during primal mode, I'm going for them. Hence, this is why you're seeing the younger people getting hurt.
And Nelma, you were, as I think I heard you beginning to say something just now, and as you said earlier, you're closer to the situation on the ground. So what are some of your thoughts in response to some of what we've been talking about?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that Dr. Gale did point it out that we need to put something in place for that lower quintile that is neglected and doesn't have. A lot of us now who are the service provider or who are at the forefront to address these situations believe that if you give people, you are maintaining what we call the clientelism and those sort of things. There's a time for everything, and I think that we do not understand that. We cannot expect people to fend for themselves and fend for on their own. We have to set up a frame. That is one of our responsibility in governance. Set up a frame, and then we wean off people eventually. I think we cannot just drop the bomb and leave people alone on their own when they're in primal mode. And pandemic has compounded that for Belize. Dr. Gale is speaking from a practical or even from theoretical point of view. But when we listen, and I know a lot of people were upset when some members of the street took to the media and started expressing themselves, there was so much to have been learned from those group of men. Many of what they're saying is exactly what Dr. Gale just said in terms of theorizing. It came directly from them. So the point that I want to make is that these people know what their problems are and they know what the solution should be, but we are not tapping into them enough. A lot of us think that we know and we plan for them rather than get them involved in the planning so that they can help to solve their own problems.
But the problem goes so much deeper, and I hear that. I think that when there was a reaction, especially to two things. One, with talks of gang truce that we've seen countless times before, and also where persons who identified as members of gangs came out to speak out against the murder of Dwayne Gabriel, an innocent teenager who was just at the shop. Tell me a bit about what your reaction is, having done the research, when you see this, because some argue that you're glorifying the role of gang leaders, and others, as you said, kind of see them as having an important voice in this conversation. How do you explain that?
I think from the onset, when we are trying to build consensual power, that is where we are going wrong. Dr. Gale said it earlier. We take a suppressive approach. Everything is suppression. Everything is enforcing through the police, and that the police is supposed to have all the answers. We have said this before. Recently, when people keep asking, how can we, let's talk about the gang situation, let's talk about, we have said all these things already, but it's okay. It is for the common good, and I'm glad that you are entertaining the conversation again. But the approach that has been taken is what is crippling us. When we take, and I guess the guys themselves from the street got enough of the fact that they start something with them, and the legitimacy of those things, meaning the continuation of how they interact with them. And I spoke to one of them on Saturday. He came to me because he's saying, we don't want to hear from so and so and so, because they come, they tell us they will help, and then they disappear out of the blue. And he said, our young people, we want something. We want to know that we belong. We want to know that somebody cares about us. But a lot of time people come, start something with us, and then they leave. And I believe it's the same thing with the gang truce. Setting up a gang truce is not just being verbal about something. There has to be some kind of written agreement and position that both sides take, and what will happen if these truces are broken. What is the state's position? What is the street group position? Those are some of the things that needs to be discussed. And I want to say, those of us who work with these groups and with communities, it is more than what we think we know. We need training to work with vulnerable communities.
Yeah. And Nama brought up something as well briefly, which I think is also important in this conversation. And you had mentioned the role of the police and how the reaction has typically been to increase policing. And we know that the problems that have come with that as well, in Belize in particular, which also has a problem with police brutality in some cases, and violence. And Dr. Gale, can you also talk about the role that perhaps, the way that we have enforced laws and the way that policing has been carried out in Belize and in the region has also affected or contributed to this problem?
All right. Let me begin by by giving a scenario. When I left school, I went to Teachers College and I started teaching in the secondary school. And my principal came to me one day and said, Herbs, I'm asking you to give these students detention. And I said to her, I didn't do anything wrong. And she was in shock. I said, I didn't do anything wrong. So why am I going to detention? Detention is a very stupid idea that we use in schools because the teacher gets punished. The teacher has to sit down there with the students for 2 hours when the teacher has work to go and do. And so she was in shock. And I said, this is exactly what we do with the police. So the government calls upon a set of poor people. Let me just declare them as poor people, called the police. And the police and the gunman, the police and the gangs are to be punished. Both of them are out there facing each other and both of them are being punished. Without understanding that you can't keep suppression go on and on. Look at Jamaica, Trinidad, Belize. Let's take our 3 countries that have the most of this problem. What's the first thing you see about the police? They die from natural causes. Natural causes. More than anybody else. They are stressed more than anybody else. They have murder suicides in their families more than anybody else. They kill themselves more than anybody else. There is a certain point beyond which a human being has what is called an ecological footprint. You can carry no more. And when you have states of emergency for 2 months, states of emergency for another 2 months, extend the state of emergency, Parliament, let us meet again. We extend the state of emergency, like I see Caribbean countries do, and some countries in Africa. Please, LAC and Africa are the only 2 zones that keep doing this nonsense. We extend the whatever, and the police officers get tired. And when they get tired, they lash out. They brutalize anybody they meet, because in the same way like the gang, when they get real deep primal, they hurt anything that moves. Same thing. Now you have a system called fear factor stepping in, where both the gang and the police are on edge. And they harm people and they harm themselves, rather than have calm community type policing. You can't have police on war readiness all the time, because the gangs are already in war readiness mode. And believe me, Belize has done tremendously well under the pressure. It can get worse. What you have that you think is bad can get seriously worse, because you're pressurizing the 2 ends of the problem too much. It means that we have to provide police officers with the training and the space to be more community oriented. And where you have a situation, you lock it down, which is the peace treaties, the suppression, all of these things that we know very well. You do that. Let me give you one final example. We asked in 5 countries police officers to play good cop, bad cop. It took the police in the 5 countries 3 minutes to do a skit on bad cop. It took them 15 minutes. 15 minutes and they still can't come up with the skit about good cop. They've been bad cop for so long, they can't work out in the head how you do good cop. Because the states have used and abused them so much to suppress young men that it's giving them a hard time cognitively to come up with the basic things they should do despite all their training. These things only happen in countries where the police officer is on the beat every single day without a break. In first world countries, they get breaks. They go and play golf. They go on holidays. Literally every year. They look forward to their break. They get break days. In Belize, Jamaica, Trinidad, they are the slaves of the state until they crack. And when they crack, believe me, your children get beaten up.
And then we see the video of it. And then it keeps on perpetuating this very tense relationship or aggressive relationship between communities and police. And that's one of the questions I wanted to get at, because I do maintain not all police officers engage in police brutality, but the community's expectation of law enforcement now is at the point that they're simply waiting for their rights to be infringed upon. So when you talk about interventions, or when you talk about being able to implement strategies, is it perhaps something that we have to rethink, that the implementation can't come from the police because the relationship is too fractured right now?
Marlene,
No.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that is one of the things that we need to talk about. The police having to implement and even try to build consensual power, trying to mediate. One of these guys told me Saturday, you think we will tell police anything? We don't trust them. They arrest us, they send us to jail. How can we have this kind of relationship that is already fractured? And until government understand that community policing is what we need, we can only dream of achieving consensual power. We won't get there.
It's important, though, Malin, it's important to understand that the police don't make up a homogeneous group. All right? There are police officers that young men worship. Trust me, worship. I've seen it in Jamaica, I've seen it in Trinidad, I've seen it in Belize. In fact, let me give you a case where some young men got really, really tired of the police and they were about to attack a police station. And who came out? The one good police that everybody loved. And the young men started to cry. Imagine that. They had it. They couldn't take it anymore. And who came out of the station? Just God would have it. The one that they know, love them, who sit on the corner with them.
I was going to ask you, what did that officer do differently?
Sit and reason and call them brother. Do you know the power of calling somebody brother and they look in your eyes, animal to animal, and know that you're genuine? That's called legitimacy, because legitimacy is built on trust. If you treat me a particular way, you are legitimate. I have seen two gangs warring, and I parked my truck along the road, came out, put up my hand, and everybody in my team flat in the truck, one praying, and I came out of the truck, put up my hand, and the gun stopped. That's legitimacy. I'm not saying I should do it. That's madness. But some of us have to be mad. But that's legitimacy. I know, I guarantee the guns will stop because I'm Herbs. And that's not by boast. I'm Herbs because both sides of those two young men know I am the only person who can move back and forth, and a few baby mothers. I have a few baby mothers who can move back and forth across the border because she has one child over here and one child over there, and everybody know her. And unless we have on the ground people who can move back and forth, we can't solve this. But again, it's not all police officers are in the situation where they lack complete legitimacy. There's about what we estimate in Trinidad to be about 15%, in Jamaica about 10%, and in Belize it's about the same. Who can actually go anywhere? We need to find those police officers. I mean, when we were doing the research, we could actually name a few of them because we knew them by name, right? But that's 10 years ago. I'm saying there are those police officers who can lead teams, but they can't be the aggressors. Once an aggressor comes in an area, that's aggression. Aggression begets aggression. But on the ground, you need to have a system like Cure Violence. I've said it repeatedly. In Jamaica, we call it PMI or the VIP, the Violence Interruption Program. You need people from the community who are respected in the community within a unit, within a system that are working to create a mentorship frame for these young men who are making sure they are redeployed. Because the redeployment will not come from government. All we're asking government to do is provide a structure, allow, foster, fund a structure, and let the work begin so the murders can go back down. These units work with the most primal groups, while you have another group now working with the group around the primal group, mothers, sisters, little brothers, because believe me, they drive the driver. And once you begin to sop things up, which is called a secondary economic renewal and restoration, and you have people constantly going back and forth and saying, David and John, come sit together. You've been warring for 15 years. Come and sit together. Once you keep doing this, and you're making sure David and John's little brothers and sisters go to school, So they go to UB and they go to UE Open and so forth. Then what you do, you deny the reason to war. You dry up the pool from which it's going to come. And believe me, within 15 years, Belize is going to be back to where it was up to the year 2000. But somebody has to take the decision. There has to be the political will. There has to be vision for this to be done.
There has to be decisiveness as well in being able to build a strategy. And I wanted to, you started to touch on it, and if we could just dive a bit deeper. One of the things I know 10 years ago when you first presented your results, and I think one of the most outstanding sound clips that we heard over and over was where you sat at the table and said to the cameras, "Mothers, hug your boys." And I always remember that. And I wanted to, if we could just a moment, look at the social constructs that existed then, that we know with all the violence that has been perpetuated since then, all the fathers that have been lost, all the brothers that have been lost, all the male influence within pockets of societies, and what you would imagine needs to happen today in those families.
All right, so let's start with the data for Belize. Belize has one of the highest copper families in the entire region because of its Catholic influence. So 65% of your populations have both parents, okay? Compared to Jamaica's 42%. Okay? Now, let's shift to the south side where the problem is. Are the other areas where the problems have spread because of poor governance? Stay with me. What you're going to see is only 30% of these young people have both mother and father. You can see the damage already to the family. So it means that one of the first things we have to do is to begin to look at the extended family, the grandmas and the sisters and the uncles and so forth who've been trying to rescue these children. And we have to have the family support systems. We have to have a forum every now and then reminding people how to parent. We have to have an occasion where you have families go out and eat free. Look here, it's some simple things, and it's not magic, it's some simple things, right? And that's when somebody turn up and say, you know, I'm family, you didn't even know it's your family. One of the first things that struck me hard in Belize is how damaging violence can be in Belize because everybody are cousin. I have never seen a place with more relatives.
Yes.
I remember the first young man I interviewed who said to me, "Sir, let me tell you what is the most depressing about. The young man that I killed is my cousin. I discovered when I was in prison that it's my cousin I killed." So there's a lot we can do, but we have to spend some time with the family. We have to sit down with family and work out with them. And that means having a program, right? And this requires some money. We have to invest in violence reduction, in which we educate them. Teachers also. I mean, I can't give you the data on teachers because it's not my research. And I'm not being authorized, but some of it is scary. But here is the continuation of violence that we have to address. 80% of mothers who can't hug their sons and beat upon their sons and torture, let me use the word torture, which means prolonged and intense. 80% of them were either raped as a child or beaten up as a child, sexually or physically abused. So we're going to have to also ensure that we're protecting our girls. This is not just a conversation about boys, because boys come from girls at some point. We have to get back to the point where we protect, where we are serious about protecting girls. And it can't be just the physical things, like I see some real stupid things being done in this region, where international development partners give communities money for street lamp, and the men take stone and gunshot and shoot out back all the lights in one day. We, the Caribbean people, we the people who live here, must determine our future, must determine what policies we are doing. We can't take money from the nice Europeans and Americans to put in street light, which you can stone. The kinds of nonsense we've done in this region is hilarious. We must sit down and say, we know how to do this, because we do.
I just wanted you to say clearly, because you mentioned the point of torture, and that's data from Belize.
Yes.
Yes.
The bulk of boys in Belize who have killed somebody has been tortured, has gone through something called ACEs, adverse child experiences. That's a very popular word these days.
Yes.
So let me use the very popular word. If you look at, I have in my data set 274 young men who have killed repeatedly, including some from Belize, and 100% of them were tortured. I didn't say 99.9%.
Yeah, yeah. And just we're running out of time so quickly. What do you say to the wider community? You know, you said something earlier, you know, you got to be mad. And I think sometimes the question may be, are we mad enough? There's a blame game that we all engage in. We're all guilty of it. We talk about it is the schools say it's the parents say it's the government. You know, there's blame all around. The public looks at the government, says, what are you doing? Community groups say, how are you helping? And we just sit back and say, we're tired, we're frustrated, but then what? What do you say to people who feel this feeling of frustration?
And even powerlessness.
And powerlessness, yeah.
I like that question, Marlene.
Yeah, go ahead. Both of you, please.
Okay. You're so right in saying that we tend to blame game the situation or reality. And I think the point at which we are at, we have to get into the communities. We have to get our hands dirty. We have to empower our communities, go back to that point where in lots of other cultures, and I spoke to one community over the weekend, and they're ready, they're willing, they're open to the fact that they have to solve their own problem. But we have to put some level of support around this situation, and there has to be leadership. Somebody has to take the leadership to ensure that the networking and the collaboration and the empowerment business are going on. That is one of the things that I know that is much needed. We have to go back to some community work. We cannot leave people on their own. And like we said, people who are in these primal conditions, we have to provide some sense of hope. If it's even to build back the relationship within their own communities. One of the things that needs to be done is the assessment of each particular community. Every community have a different need. And we cannot treat all or say that they wear the same size shoes. So community assessment has to be done to find out community needs, and then we spring from there. That I think right now would be a good beginning. I don't know what Dr. Gale point is in regards to that.
Yeah.
All right. So the truth of the matter is that fear is normal. It is normal for people to be scared. One of the things I've just completed 3 years ago, I did the assessment on cure violence in Jamaica, which is very successful. And one of the things that I discovered is that when you have a team on the ground that has a structure such as cure violence, as you call it, we call it violence interruption in Jamaica, it empowers the people on the ground to join the group, to help, to mentor and take care of the situation and sop up and mop up the violence. But without a structure on the ground, the people are, you know, do I have to go alone? But when you have a team on the ground with a community having 4 or 5 violence interrupters, then people from the church, everybody join them. Like in one community, a lady said to me, everybody down here are VIs, as in violence interrupter, because we have 3 on paper and they may get a little shilling, but everybody else here is it because we just join up with them. So when you have a good army on the ground, not boots on the ground, don't mix this up, not boots.
No BDF.
No BDF, right. When you have a good an army of social intervention on the ground, you are going to see major changes. Right? We have suggested, there's a listening process going on. I won't say too much. It's not my task to pressure your government, but I'm saying we need to hear from persons that we can start the work to set up Cure Violence in Belize so we can get everybody on the ground, mentoring, getting action going without the fear. Once you know how it behaves, look at what they call Royal Caribbean Terrier. We call them mongrel dog. All right, in Belize, that you call them pampas eaters. Look at one of them. They'll run and go and bark at somebody and run back to the yard. Look at when five of them come at you. They no longer run back because there's strength in numbers. That's what we want to create on the ground so that we can begin the process of bringing Belize back to norm.
Well, Dr. Gale and Nama, we are just about out of time, but this has certainly been a very enlightening and timely conversation. And we hope that, some of the messages did go through. But thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And our next conversation, we'll be talking about mental health and the impacts of the pandemic on people in this country. So please, stay tuned.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
To decrease your risk of being bitten by infected mosquitoes, use proven personal protective methods too. Apply an effective mosquito repellent to exposed areas of skin according to manufacturer's instructions. Wear light-colored long pants and shirts while outdoors in the early morning and late afternoons. Further, protect vulnerable family members like pregnant women, children, the elderly, and persons who are unwell by using mosquito nets to sleep or rest, even during the day. Fight the bite and protect yourself and your family too from mosquito-borne diseases.
Hey son, how was your first day at sixth form?
Really cool. It was great to see my friends, and I really love my teachers.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first day, but I'll be back from Corozal next week.
It's okay, Dad. I can't wait to see you. Oh, and please remember, I still have some books I need to purchase.
Ah, yes. Let me e-cash you that right now. Money has been sent. I add a little extra cash just for you.
Whoa, Dad. Thanks. Got it.
You're welcome, sir.
Download the eCash app today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257. eCash, the future is here.
Bringing people together has always been SMART's mission and passion. That is why we are proud to have built a locally independent quality network from the ground up that spans the country with over 100 sites. We continue to add more affordable mobile data packages, broadband speeds, and voice services to meet your personal and business needs. SMART has set the standard of true competition with the most competitive prices on all services offered. We invite and welcome you to join the Smart family, where the value for your dollar matters. Smart will continue bringing new technologies, more affordable prices, network expansions, and people together. Smart, bringing people together.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
And we're back. We're moving into our second conversation for today, where we are going to put into focus the situation of mental health in the country and talking about the upcoming World Mental Health Day. We have with us psychotherapist with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Juliet Simmons. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And it's always timely to talk about mental health, isn't it?
That is so true.
Yeah, and even more so in the pandemic. I was telling you during the break that as Dr. Gale was talking about trauma and what people have experienced in this country, whether involved in crime or anything else, there are a lot of mental health struggles that people are facing. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of just want to start with the situation that we know on the ground.
There's a lot on the ground right now, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. But I think this COVID-19 pandemic, it has been a double whammy for mental health, mm-hmm. in the sense that for those with pre-existing conditions, the pandemic has made it a bit worse for them. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic has created new conditions, as in, not new conditions, as in new cases. Mm-hmm. So we have an increase in a lot of cases now due to this pandemic that we're living in right now.
What are the top issues that we're seeing?
The most common is still anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
But then you don't want to forget about the other disorders either. People suffering with post-traumatic stress, that also has increased, by the way. And psychosis, bipolar, so some of the more serious conditions, people who have already been living with those conditions. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic didn't make it any easier for them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. You know, you say we see an increase, mm-hmm. but in terms of people's ability to, let's say, access treatment or deal with the problem in some way, how has that also increased, or what are we seeing in terms of how people are coping?
COVID-19 has significantly impacted mental health. Mm-hmm. Our mental health, yes, we know that. We've been talking about that for some time. Mm-hmm. But it also have a significant impact on our services. Because you notice now that the Ministry of Health and Wellness had to shift focus, and we have to take care of people who are becoming infected. Yeah. We have to take care of this country. We have to try to prevent these infections and we're pushing this vaccination, you know, head over heels we are. Mm-hmm. So that other conditions, other situation had to, you know, take a little back seat. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately for us, our services has been impacted significantly. Mm-hmm. We don't have enough staff for the increase in the new cases that I just mentioned. Yeah. So we have people on waiting lists. How sad is that?
Why?
To wait for. So the access has been impacted.
I'm sorry if I side like that. It's just the fact that we know it takes a lot for people in our culture to reach out for help.
Right.
And then to reach out for help and to be told, kind of wait your slot or till someone is available, has to be a challenging thing from your end to do. But it does require, your job requires that you put in the right amount of time with each client.
Right. We want to continue to give the best service.
Yes.
And our patients, our clients deserve that and want that.
Yeah.
And we as the professional, that's what we're trained to do.
Yeah.
If it's free or if you're paying for it, you want to give that person the best.
So mental health service in Belize is like another COVID unit, waiting for the space to be able to get treatment.
Sometimes I joke around with people, and it comes out as a joke, but I'm dead serious that the pandemic is mental health.
Yeah. 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 And I think the mental health of the majority have been infected, more persons than those who've had COVID.
Right.
But what's the concern here? What's the larger concern? I know we talked, well, you've done interviews before talking about the situation of suicide in the country.
Right.
And that we have seen a rise
An
in
increase
numbers.
in suicide.
We
yes.
don't report it, so maybe the public isn't aware. But give us a bit of clarity on that picture.
Well, that is for sure. This pandemic year or year and months definitely increased all conditions, including thoughts about suicide, suicidal behavior. So we're not just talking about complete suicide, we're talking about just having the thoughts. I mean, a lot of our adolescents are struggling. Even just young adults are struggling with, we can't do anything. This is the time of their life where they're being so sociable. And they have to control that. They are forced to control that. So many are struggling with thoughts, so why be here? What are we supposed to do? So this is very difficult. It creates the anxiety, the depression comes on. And when depression gets serious and severe, suicidal thoughts come. So if you hear about a suicide, you get to hear about one. But what you really don't hear is about all the attempts, all the thoughts that people have about it. So the number is bigger than you can ever imagine.
And do you think that also, given all of this increasing stress and anxiety and the conditions that people have been under that have caused the increase in incidences of mental health issues, do you think that the population, let's say, or most people are even, do they have the knowledge to even recognize when they have the problem, and so that they can address it or deal with it in a healthier, constructive way?
Not to the level where we would want it. I can safely say that there's a lot going on. A lot of people are suffering, and it's undetected and of course not treated. And then that will, continue to persist and get worse as they continue to grow. When I'm saying that, I'm thinking about adolescents, because a lot of it begin at the age of 14. So between, let's say, 14 and 25, that went undiagnosed, untreated. So after that, it just comes worse when it starts impacting your function.
As we approach World Mental Health Day, let me ask you, what's the global conversation like at this moment about how we prepare ourselves for what's to come? In other words, what we're living through right now and the effect it is having on our mental health, some of these we won't see until after the pandemic. What will be the impact of 14-year-olds who needed that social interaction to kind of build their own development, that they didn't have it, that they'll be delayed? Is there any talk of looking at what the long-term impacts will be and what will be done to address it?
Well, yes, we're definitely concerned about the long-term impact and how will we address it. So we want to make sure that we're ready, that we're accessible to everyone who needs our help. So that is kind of like at the forefront of our mind, to make sure that we're there for when they are ready, for when we go back to what we want as our normalcy, that we are ready for them, and that they are in a place that can come out and talk about it. Because right now, this year, the theme for World Mental Health Day is mental health in an unequal world. And if you talk, well, I wanted to bring somebody with me up here. And honestly, I contacted 7 people, and all 7 said no. Why do you think is that?
A person with mental health?
Yes.
Oh, they're scared of stigma.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had 2 people who really wanted, and they would say, I know I could help you, but I have to think about my reputation. I have to think about my children's reputation. So they couldn't make it, as much as they know the importance of talking about mental health. The more we talk about mental health, the more we're fighting that stigma.
Yeah. And is it all, are we seeing manifestations or people are treated differently if they say, I have anxiety or depression, or I'm bipolar, or I have some other issue that I am addressing?
All right. We have made some huge improvement with anxiety and depression. It has become more widely accepted Some people even say it has become medicalized in that people now say it like you say, like you said just now, I have anxiety, I have depression. They're not saying I feel depressed, I feel anxious. So they kind of medicalize it and saying, you know, like I have diabetes.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing now.
Yeah.
So it has become accepted in that sense. The other disorders, the more serious ones, no, you won't hear anyone say I have bipolar.
Yeah.
I have
borderline.
schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But I think that also brings up a very, you know, important idea, because a lot of, increasingly, and this is just my sort of reaction, and you as a professional probably know more, is that people are starting to now put mental health on the same level as, let's say, physical health. So when you say things like, you know, people come, I have anxiety or whatever, in the same way that people would say I have this other disease, people are recognizing that yes, it's a medical condition, and that it needs the same level of attention and treatment. And have you noticed that people are changing their understanding of mental health in general, and has that been, you know, beneficial in any way?
It is. I see more people coming for the services. So they're willing to get help. They recognize that they need help. They will do better with help. But then they want to do that in so privately.
Yeah.
That nobody needs to know. I mean, right at our clinic, right at Port Loyola, where all our services are at right now, you know, people are asking if we would do it privately.
Because they don't want to be seen.
They don't want to be seen.
Is that, I mean, do you also use virtual? Is that one way that you could?
Due to the pandemic situation, yes.
Yeah.
So we're kind of a blended services right now. Well, at least my services that I can offer. I do virtual and I still do face-to-face. But some of the other services has to be face-to-face. You know, I mean, you know, for those who are receiving treatment as in oral treatment or injections, they have to be seen by the nurse or the doctor.
Yeah, yeah. Julia, if you were to pinpoint what you think is kind of the biggest concern for the mental health of the people in this country, what would that be?
Access to service.
Qualified professionals? Number of qualified professionals?
Definitely. It has, but in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, our staff is still very small. We have trained nurses we have nurses that are trained in psychiatric nursing that are working in the hospitals. Because you know the condition we are in right now. We are short on nurses across this country. So they are needed also in the hospitals. So that the ones that remain in the mental health clinics are strained right now. And it's really important for us to take care of ourselves. I mean, you should hear us how we talk at the clinic. We're always looking out for each other and remember, take care of yourself. We have to control that as much as we can. Not just because we don't want to become infected with COVID. That's number one. We don't want to take it home to our families. But we want to continue to provide this service. If there's an outbreak at our clinic, you know how that will affect how many people? To shut down a mental health clinic, that's over 400 people can't get services for a couple of weeks. So I feel like we're under pressure to make sure that we provide this service because we know the importance of it. So it's not a selfish act at all for us. We want to be there.
I was gonna go back to something that you mentioned briefly earlier, but if we could like have a little, or you know, shed a little bit more light on issues relating to how the pandemic has affected children, because you know you mentioned the problems that can be caused from like, let's say, the lack of schooling and the social setting, but there's other issues. There may be family issues and all sorts of things going on at home that they're dealing with in addition to that. So can you talk a little bit about the mental effects on young people, children, and what perhaps you've been observing that the pandemic has brought on?
It has affected them. With children, you either see they're acting out a little bit more. I mean, you've been in, let's call it, closed spaces for too long. You're being at home. Their socialization is going on. And if you're one of those families who's extra careful, you don't want your kid to go over to the neighbors to play because you don't know who they entertain at their house and you know who is in and out, and for those reasons. So there's a lot of screen time also going on, which we usually would have asked to control. But how can we do that now when school is online? Online is how we entertain. Online is how we communicate and socialize. So then there is always the backlash of that will be some acting out where they won't want to do other things. Well, they turn against school activities right now. So school have to be becoming very creative, that everything can't be done really on the screen, but sometimes outside of that.
And parents sometimes they don't know necessarily.
And yes, it does have an effect on the parents as well.
And they have to be teachers now in some cases. And also if there is and then we also spoke a little bit in our first conversation about how the pandemic has increased domestic violence, you know, in the general sense, family, you know, it could be abuse to children, or they're witnessing abuse if it's happening. So that's also.
One of the things people normally do for their own self-care is outings. People hang out, they go out to eat, they go
get out of the house.
They get away, they go hang at the park. They do different things for their own self-care, which is part of mental health. But all of that has been very limited. So yes, it affects how we will relate to each other. So our patience is significantly reduced. I can't cope so well because I need a break. And I want to get away, and we can't do it.
And adapting to the change in itself. That's difficult on people who maybe think they have no mental health issues.
Right.
How do we use the opportunity of World Mental Health Day to shine a spotlight on what's going on and how to help people who haven't even tried to access help?
Well, what we're doing this year is definitely, we're always trying to create more awareness on mental health.
Yeah.
But this year, the focus is on, we need more investment in mental health. We want that to be heard. We want people to be able to feel comfortable talking about mental health. So if everybody feels comfortable talking, we believe there will be more investment in mental health. Because if you suffer in silence, and we don't know.
And even if you're being treated in silence, if you have access to mental health, it's kind of getting more comfortable being able to say it as well. But how do you bridge the gap of trained personnel? You rightly said the nurses are needed for physical health care, although they're trained to provide psychiatric care as well. So is there perhaps, like with lawyers, they do pro bono cases, or there's legal aid? Are there other agencies that complement to provide free services?
Well, definitely. I think people in mental health are special people, as in our hearts are made differently. So yes, it's not so much about making the money. A lot of people in private, yes, are offering the pro bono and the free services. And you hear them, they're on social media, they're promoting it, that please come. This is what we're here for.
But still not enough.
But that still is not enough to the amount of people who we suspect would need help. I mean, the bulk of the professionals in mental health are here in Belize City.
That's true.
It's not just people in Belize City that are affected with mental health issues.
Wow.
Yeah, I was also gonna ask, you know, about the impact on the mental health, you know, service providers, because of course with the increase in cases and the more strain on the system, and everything that the pandemic has caused to it must have, you know, made your jobs harder as well. So is there also, you know, mechanisms that provide, let's say, relief or services for you all as well to provide that additional support?
Not, I think so. No, we're doing what we can with what we have, and that's all I think we can do. But we're still doing as much. I can't say it any other way. We're doing all that we can do.
Yeah. Juliet, I mean, that's heavy stuff. I think the idea that there's such a great need for service, and those who can provide it are stretched thin.
We are
in
stretched
being
thin.
able to offer what they can, because well, with all healthcare, physical and mental, you can't cut corners. You know, the doctor can't decide I'll only sew up half the stitch, and the therapist or the psychiatrist can't say I'll only listen to half your problem.
Right.
So it's critical that you put in that time. So it's understood there are people in society right now who are struggling. Are there things we can do or need to do to minimize reaching the point where we have a mental health crisis?
Well, definitely, you want to take care of your mental health. And to have good mental health, it means that you can cope with life struggles, with life stresses, you know, the normal ones that come, that you don't lose your balance, let's say. So if your car breaks down and you're out of a car for a week, how does that affect your mental health? These things can happen. I mean, does that really throw you out of whack? Does that mean your mood will definitely be affected, but how severely will that be? Can you still manage? Or will you go into a, you know, a drinking spiral, you know? 'Cause that's another one too, you know, the increase in use of mood substance, which includes the alcohol and the other drugs. So that's another one that we have been paying attention to as well. But back to maintaining good mental health is that we want to remember that you need to take care of yourself, to do what you do, to take care of your kids, to perform well at your job. You need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that includes your mental health, which means you need to get good sleep.
Oh,
like that
no.
reaction.
Why do you have to have that one? Yeah, it was like, okay, let me go through this checklist with you, but I started on the wrong foot.
Yeah. So good sleep is definitely one. You want to try to have how close can you come to having a balanced diet? To eat well, to feed the brain well, so you have the right amount of energy to get around to do what you need to do. And when you feel stress, you need to manage that. What do you do to manage some little stressor that happened at work or at home? You take a 5-minute break, you listen to some music, you take a walk around, up and down the street somewhere, do something, or talk about it. 'Cause that is another big one, talk. So you need to have somebody that you could confide in, a good friend, a close relative that you can talk to.
Yeah, that's key.
Being active is another big one. We want to promote being active, as in you either get some exercise or other activities that you enjoy. And for those that are at home, come outside and get some sunlight. You don't want to be staying indoors all day for a whole week or more. Come outside.
All right. I know we're totally out of time at this point, but Juliet, is there anything that is going to happen that people can participate in? Any advice to the wider public that you'd like to close off with?
Well, World Mental Health Day is October 10th, so that's Sunday. So this is observed yearly, worldwide. The theme this year is, you know, mental health in an unequal world. We're trying to bridge that gap as much as possible. We're doing a lot of these type of shows. We're creating as much awareness as possible. Some of the district staff were able to organize competitions with the schools. So there's more awareness going on there. The Mental Health Association is also doing their usual speech competition.
Oh yes, the virtual speech.
Yeah, the virtual speech competition. So that's going to be going through as well.
All right. And if people need to access services, where do we tell them to go?
So here in Belize City, all of mental health services is located at one place, which is the Port Loyola Health Center, which is on Farbers Road. In the districts, the clinics are still attached to the hospitals, so you can find a psychiatrist and a psychiatric nurse.
All right.
Well, Juliet, thank you so much for coming in and sharing all about World Mental Health Day. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you.
All right.
And with that,
and take care of yourself.
Yes, please be safe. With that, we are going to be taking another short break, and when we come back, we're going to be hearing all about the latest exciting fundraiser from Autism Belize. So please stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
The This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
It's a fact that you can access unlimited services with Smart. Tired of being measured or cut off when you need to be connected? It's a fact that when you sign up for Smart's Plus plan, you get unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data. And it's a fact that you can sign up with your group of up to 5 members for Smart's Share plans and up to 40 members for Smart's Enterprise plans for unlimited talk, text, and data. Smart has the true unlimited plans. That's a fact. Be smart and live smart.
Vaccines protect you and they protect me. Getting vaccinated is one of the most important things you can do to keep yourself and your family safe and healthy. Once enough people are immunized, opportunities for an outbreak of disease becomes very low. And if we all choose to get vaccinated, we contribute in getting back to spending quality time with our loved ones in a safe way.
Life can be tough when a loved one suddenly departs. Dependents of the deceased are sometimes left alone to pick up the pieces and may be stranded financially. Fortunately, the Social Security Board provides survivor's benefit to ease the burden. Survivor's benefit is paid to a widow or widower, children under 18 years, or up to 21 years if attending school, or dependent parents. A survivor's benefit can be either a grant or a pension. Want to know more about survivor's benefit? Visit our website or contact any of our offices to have someone assist you. Also, be sure to visit our Facebook page and give us a like to stay informed. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
My name is Alfred Ayuso, and I lost my dad to COVID. Fred Ayuso, wow, there's just so much to say about him. You know, he was like a real caretaker and a real provider for his family. You know, he was an extremely loving man. He had very colorful vocabulary, you know, if you know what I mean. I remember getting the call in early June that my dad had COVID. And you know, at first I didn't think much of it. I didn't feel like it was life-threatening at the time. Ever since I got the call, like every single day, things just got worse. We couldn't do anything except just be hopeful and to pray. I could remember the day that he got intubated. He was on a video call with my little sister, and she recorded it and sent us the video. And it was the last clip I saw of him alive. And you know, I was looking at him, and he was struggling to breathe. And he was just saying that I'm tired. You know, he's saying I can't breathe. I'm tired. And I could see him struggling, and at that point, I could see that all he wanted was to rest, because he's been fighting this virus for days without sleep, just trying to breathe, just trying to stay alive. He fought for his life, and you know, he was 59 when he got intubated, and his birthday was on the 11th of June, and he managed to hang on until his birthday, and he completed 60 years under that machine, and he was alive, and he died the following day. He wanted to get vaccinated, but it's just one of those things. I guess he didn't get around to it, and listening to all the misconception, I guess it makes you kind of step back a little or hold back, and that's the problem. I guess that's the thing with the virus. It doesn't wait for anyone. Losing someone to COVID definitely feels like you're cheated. Losing someone to COVID is really losing someone that is not their time. Don't wait until COVID hits home for you to see that it's real, and to see that we have an obligation and a responsibility to protect ourselves, to protect our family, our brothers and sisters.
And we're back.
And if you're joining us right now, we are getting our third conversation started. And as we said before the break, we're getting an update from Autism Belize into an exciting new fundraiser and what all they have been doing. And we are joined by the founder and executive director of Autism Belize, Christy Almeida. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning.
How are you doing?
I am tired, but I'm okay. A lot of people are saying we haven't seen much of you since April, but honestly, since April, it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
We've had so many organizations, ministries, groups have been calling and saying, can you come train us? We want a sensitization workshop. How can we help?
Yeah.
It's really been wonderful, the reception from the community, and I'm talking about at large. We just did a training for a group in PG. And Zoom is absolutely wonderful because we're reaching so many people, but it has been a constant go, go, go. So we haven't been a lot in the news, but it has been really, really busy.
Well, you just wrapped up your shadow...
our Parapro training.
Can you say it again?
Parapro. Pro. It's paraprofessional is the word.
Paraprofessional.
We're calling them parapros.
Okay. And they are shadows. They assist children with autism or children with special needs within the school system.
Persons with autism.
Okay.
Because, we graduated 32, but they can work with young up to old. So one of our paraprofessionals started their new job and they're working with a young adult. He's smart, he's brilliant, wants to start his own business, do all of these great things, but because of some of the side effects of having a anxiety or dealing with focusing and whatever, he now has a buddy that's going to help him navigate starting his own business. And so don't think this is just for children. I've also had parents that are, their kids are in high school. They do well, they're going to some of the top schools in this country, but they're struggling with online and focus and everything else. So a paraprofessional can go in, and it's not that they need help with the work, they can do the work, but we got to make sure that they're signing on, that they're focusing, that, we're doing what we need to do when we need to do it. And on deadlines, and when parents are working, that's where Parapro can step in. So you're looking at, they're more than a caregiver. I'm not hiring you to feed my child or bathe him. I'm hiring you to teach them how to bathe themselves, or go to school with them and help them with that, or help them in society, because some of our kids are brilliant and can work and can find jobs, but might be having issues with some of the social things. And that's where your Parapro can come in. They can be a teacher, they can be a mentor, a coach, or a friend.
And this is such a important, we didn't have people trained to do this before. We had very kind and thoughtful people who would take a position like this and help someone in school, but they didn't necessarily know the how-to.
And that's the key, because we graduated 32 people, and some of them were parents who just want to learn more about taking care of their kids. Some of them are teachers who are working with special needs kids or whatever, but needed the guidance. And then there's some who are looking for the job. We had this one teacher that came up from PG every single Saturday just for this course for a month. She came up, did the course or whatever, and afterwards she's like, I have 6 students that I'm working with. It's been really hard with the distance learning. I've been looking for this, whatever. And she says, anything else you can help me with? And these are the people we are, because you're saying they're kind, they want to help. They have been helping. But what we were able to do was sort of give them some really good tips and stuff on evidence-based practices. And the course was really information heavy, was that. And that's the thing, I haven't been advertising for our next round, but people are coming to the website and signing up. I can run this course right now in Belmopan with easily 30 people, in PG with at least 20 people, right now with those who have been signing up saying, when is it happening? We're debating on how to do it because of COVID numbers, right?
Yeah.
Part of the training, because it's so information, and we're getting up, I'm gonna get up and say, okay, this is if a child is having a meltdown, you don't wanna put your hands like this, you wanna do this, you wanna do that. And so some of it is
it has to be in
wanna
person.
be there,
Yeah.
right? Like we had them showing them how to build sensory things and what to do and everything. It's so in person that Zoom is wonderful. And if we have to go that way, we'll modify the course to go that way. But I really want to keep it in person. So we're waiting again. We've given ourselves to October 15th to see what's going on with the numbers. If we see the numbers go, then we're immediately going to start in Belmopan. I think PG's after that, Orange Walk. I mean, the numbers of requests for it, and the jobs are coming. I had a parent yesterday call me and say, I'm looking for someone, da-da-da. So we've had several people already hired.
That's the thing, because, you know, and as Marlene said, like, this was something, you know, that people weren't necessarily trained for in the past, but clearly the response shows that this has been a need that people have needed to meet. And what do you think, do you think that do you think it's like do you think that now that there wasn't awareness of it in the past, or is it just that, or is it that there was, but they just didn't know how to get to the correct or the best resources?
One of the most comments I get from parents after a support group, when I meet with them, whatever, is that now is the first time they're feeling comfortable talking about these things. You know, like all of a sudden, it's not that there wasn't an issue before or whatever, and yes, COVID has definitely exacerbated some of these issues, but there is a certain level of comfort for a lot of our parents now about coming out. They recognize they're not alone, they're not struggling. And so it's not that this is just a sudden need, it's something that they've been struggling with there. I think that we've just highlighted it and you know, I'm really loud. So we just made sure that people are listening and that you're hearing this. I did a disability inclusion training with the Belize City Council Youth Shadow Council. I mean, really good discussions. And one of the things I always focus on is inclusion. We have it's a quote, but it's basically saying we have to stop thinking of it as a noun, right? Something we have. It has to be about something we do. So don't tell me that you have an inclusive school because you have one child with Down syndrome, or you have one child with cerebral palsy. Great, wonderful. I'm really, really glad about that. But it has to be something we continuously do. It's not just about hiring that one person. It's what else are we doing? And parapros are like that ramp for people with wheelchairs, right? It's giving just that little bit of access, doing modifications and accommodations for kids in schools. That's your ramp right there. It's just getting them into the classroom. We just want them to have that same level playing field. And so
it also starts early with breaking the idea of dependency that can happen, I would imagine.
One of the biggest things we teach during the Parapro is their job as a paraprofessional is to work themselves out of a job. A successful Parapro will be working with many different kids over their terms of business, because the idea is you go in and you're going to teach them the tools to be self-sufficient. The idea is if I'm hiring a Parapro for my son, it's not that I think that he's going to need this assistance straight through to high school. The goal is that we're going to teach him how to focus and how to work and how to do these things so that I'm not needed anymore and I can go work with another child or youth or young adult. And that is your goal. I mean, we've said it several times during the training. Your goal is to work yourself out of a job. And that is true. Now, with saying that, there are going to be some kids that have that level of need that can always use the support. But those are in a minority. You find we don't have the statistics here, but in most countries, kids that need minimal support, that's about 90% of special needs kids. It's only about 10 that will find themselves needing a lot of more significant support, sort of like my son.
Yeah.
He falls in that sort of range because, you know, he's just an overachiever. But that is a small number. The majority of our kids are going to need some sort of support, modifications, accommodations, but not necessarily this significant thing that's going to make things difficult or whatever. It's just that little bit of aid. And by giving them that, that's your ramp. You're getting them into the classroom, you're going to get them into the workplace, you're going to get them into society. And we can't just leave our kids on the sideline. We just can't.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you moved back to Belize, and I think that was part of what got your movement started, and even this training, because you were looking for a professional, and now you've moved to a point where you're helping to train through the organization Autism Belize. We were talking before about how things are going. You're trying to do some fundraising for the organization.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about how you've been funding your programs and how you plan to raise funds now.
Right. Well, when I launched this was April 2020, so it was the height of, you know, we just shut down. All the activities we'd planned, we moved online, and we started, and there's an evolution, because I started with Facebook Live things, and I realized people weren't going to ask questions there. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to be known that they have a child with it or that they're struggling. And then we moved into Zoom, and our Zoom training started with 12, 15 people, and this summer we ran, oh my gosh, like 6 over the summer, and I had 80, 60. So it went from parents to teachers coming in to now I'm getting students who are looking going in the field. One of our graduates from the Parapro course is a high school student who wants to become an occupational therapist.
Wow.
And she wanted to do this because that's her goal, and one of our top scorers in our assessment, actually. So we've watched the trainings evolve from all of this. And up until April 2021, we operated on a $0 budget. We had absolutely no funds. This was all parents volunteering. Everything was done for free. Everything is still basically done for free. The Parapro course has a small fee, but we did get some scholarships to cover. Some people wanted to look for jobs that needed it. But that's mainly because our Parapro handbook was 30 pages of stuff that we had to get printed, that kind of material. But we've been operating, it's all voluntary, there's no paid staff, and it's been done like that. But there are no expenses. I was saying, you know, that we're traveling now. You know, I'm getting calls about going to do a training in banking, this or whatever. Gas is like gold these days, you know? And so there are some costs like that are, we got a couple donations and stuff over April, not because we asked. These were companies that approached us and said, how can we help or whatever. So we did get some small donations there. But now we've got to look at fundraising. The need is there. It's something I don't like at all. You know, you're going to call me and say, oh, can you come in and speak to the school, or can you help with, yesterday we had the conversation with Human Development about training their social workers. I'm all for it. But yeah, now there's some costs involved, and we've got to look at it, and it's not my strong point.
But you came up with a creative idea.
I didn't. This is so not me, and it's like it's not my strong point. I had a friend from like Infant 1 SCE that just dated myself. Don't worry about it. She's an artist. She's from Keecocker, but she's living in Canada right now. And she has a bunch of sand from Keecocker. And she made these little bracelets. We call them pebbles, which is a little weird, but bear with me here. A pebble goes through a lot with the sand, the waves. They're trying to wear them down. And I think our kids are like that. Our kids are forced so much there. We're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And they've got to stand out. And every one of our kids are unique and they're different. And what I love about this is because it's filled with the sands from Keecocker, everyone is different. We've got the colors from the Caribbean Sea. It's green and blues. And she did this on her own, because she knows people who have kids on the spectrum. She's from Keecocker, and she knows there's families out there. And 100% of the proceeds are coming to Autism Belize. So we're selling them here in the country for $25, but they're on Etsy, websites and everything that she's selling it in Canada and the US as well. But it's amazing. I think they're really cool. They're unique. They're different. They're a small little thing, but they could make a great little gift for a teacher on Teacher's Day, or a stocking stuffer.
I was just going to say Christmas coming up, KK's coming up.
Exactly, and
Or just
everyone
being
is different.
able
So I
to-
feel like it really highlights everything there is to know about autism, right? The uniqueness
It's also
and the struggle.
support. I mean, if you see somebody with, and if they don't know you're involved with Autism Belize, I would know
You
how.
kinda-
They see them with it. You know you
okay,
have an
this
ally.
is someone who's going to be accepting of our
Yeah.
differences
Or
and our
it-
kids' behavior and everything
Or
else.
it can be a conversation starter. Right?
Absolutely,
True.
absolutely. And it's an artist that just reached out and said, Christy, I want to help.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this, and she sent them. And I think for me, that's been the best thing about Autism Belize and everything. It's how many of the companies, of people just reach out and say, how can I help? And that they want to. And I think that just shows that we are accepting as a society. We just sometimes just don't understand.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool, and it's our first real thing we're selling. So hey, it's baby steps around here, but we've
Well,
got it there.
people are always looking for opportunities, one, to show that they're in support, and maybe they couldn't give a tablet, when there was the
Exactly.
need for that, but they can pick up something like this, and what we say in Belize, one full basket.
Exactly. I mean, we've given out 16 tablets with our communication app so far, and we've got a bunch more coming up soon, maybe by the end of the month, to give out. And it's just been like that. That's all been one fill basket. People are just trying to help whichever way they can, and that's how we have been able to keep operating for these 2 years doing what we do, because people have just been kind, welcoming, accepting, and that's what we want from our society.
So the Pebble bracelets go for $25.
Yes.
And as you said, people can get it on Etsy, but if you're in Belize,
You
want to
just
get
go
it?
to autismbelize.org. You can pay via eCash or transfer money into account. Once we get the payment, you can pick it up. We're working with Gearbox on the highway, so you can just go and pick them up from there once you've gotten your receipt for payment. So, electronic world, man.
I know.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. And for parents who, once again, hear you and are thinking of maybe I should just reach out to other parents, what's the difference you've seen from the quiet, shy community you met 2 years ago to what you have now?
We had our last parent support group meeting, and I was really happy at how it went. We do it the last Saturday of every month at 6 o'clock. We had over 20 parents, and the engagement. You had in the beginning with our first Zoom, like keeping the cameras off, it was really quiet. It's hard to get, right? And you do that with any support group. You kind of go, well, what's it going to do for me? Why do I need it? And then you've got those that are coming now, and right away they get on and like, let me tell you what my son is doing now, or this is going great, or oh my God, I have not slept in
Or even
days.
bad
How do you
days.
do this,
Yeah.
right? How do you do this? Or I'm struggling with potty training like you do. And it's amazing the help you can get from other parents who are living through it, and that can share and say, oh, I tried this. Oh yeah, that didn't work for me. And then another parent said, oh, try this. Oh, I haven't done that yet. I'm going to try that the next time. And so it is a really casual environment. It is just all parents.
Is it only for children with autism?
No, we have a parent who is extremely active and supportive of us, who has a son with Down syndrome. We have a couple who are have children who are visually impaired.
Okay.
Several of our parents haven't gotten a diagnosis yet, but see some form of developmental delay, which may or may not be autism, but they're there, or just some of them who've had behavioral issues and say, okay, they did the assessment and it's not, but they're struggling with this, and they know we're talking about sleep issues or behavior issues or hyperactivity or whatever it is. And so it really is a place where there's no judgment. It's sort of like, what happens there stays there, but you can just share or sit there and listen and kind of know that you're not alone. Studies show that parents with children on autism, moms that have kids with autism, have similar stress levels as soldiers who have seen combat. You're talking about mental health. Mental health is a huge component for our community. For the caregivers who are dealing with this and the stress of wondering the future and what can we do, especially in a country where we don't have a lot of services. And then our kids are 60 to 70% more likely to be affected by anxiety, depression, schizophrenia. These are all things that they are more likely to develop at some point during their life, you know, OCD. All of these mental health issues are kind of comorbidities with autism. So at some point, you know, you're going to hit puberty and you might be dealing with aggression or depression right now with COVID. And so a lot of it comes hand in hand, and having that support and being able to talk and know that we're not there to judge you, we're just here to listen, and if we have advice, we're going to try and give it.
Yeah. So all they have to do is go to Autism Belize website and find out when the next support group meets.
It's the last Saturday of every month at 6 o'clock, and once you reach out, we send you the Zoom link, and you join. Keep your camera on or off, whatever you feel comfortable with. And we get people now. Last meeting, we had someone from Jamaica, we had someone from Trinidad. So yeah, we're just becoming this sort of Caribbean support group, but it's great.
Well, we have a unique parenting style in the Caribbean too, so that will help a lot.
Oh yeah, no,
we'll have that conversation
We've had
another
games
time.
night with a Jamaica parent support group, and we did like special needs bingo and stuff, and all the competitions. But what happens there stays there, so I'm not telling any more details.
All right.
But it was a lot of fun.
We are out of time, but we did want to find out more about your Pebble bracelets and how people can show their support financially, and also by wearing it to let others know that they do support. So please do check it out. Thank you so much for coming in, Christy.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take that final break. When we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
At Belize Diagnostic Center, we offer FDA-approved PCR testing for COVID-19. Get your results as quickly as 1 hour. Don't risk getting exposed to COVID-19 by going elsewhere. We take appointments, or we can come to your home or office using our concierge service with no additional fees. We have 10 locations countrywide. Call or WhatsApp us at 613-TEST. That is 613-8378 to schedule your test today.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días, no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos, y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
The TV you love is always with you, from live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV, entertainment, anytime, anywhere.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun. With eCash, we can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform. Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go. You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code. Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. The future is here with eCash. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
And we're back.
Yep, and we are just wrapping up our show after a bunch of great conversations this morning.
You just remember you're still wearing your mask.
No, exactly, and that's why I like the camera zoomed in. So
It happens. You
right.
can keep it on. It's perfectly good. You know I hear people say all the time why we don't have on our masks. We are 6 feet apart. But yeah, it was a great show. And bringing it back to kind of the serious conversations, we started with a very realistic look. I'm always, I don't want to say inspired, and I don't want to say frustrated, but following conversations with Dr. Gale and the other researchers that have been involved in that project, because we have been reporting on it for over a decade, it does kind of gnaw me a bit that imagine if we started then, if it's a 15-year cycle.
Well, I think one of the things that stuck out from that conversation, and even having read about Dr. Gale's work and stuff, is that the thing that's I think frustrating is that there are some solutions or there are some suggestions and there are some concrete things.
It's data.
There's data to go off of, and Dr. Gale said it. Some of the things that happen in Belize have happened in Belize. They're textbook. It's what you would expect to happen in response to certain things.
Yeah.
And we're not breaking that cycle yet.
Yeah.
And as we keep, and as people like to say that the quote about the definition of insanity is to try the same thing over and over and expect different results. So I think that from that perspective, I understand. Yeah, I felt the same way.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say this much, and I know it might be unpopular, and we're really out of time, but just to say this much, sometimes we have to look at ourselves, and we have to look at what our expectations are. When the Ministry of Education talked about rolling out their free education for particular Southside schools, it's a part of what Dr. Gale is talking about. We have to help certain communities that are most vulnerable. And the first reaction you hear when you talk about kind of these pilot projects is, well, we have poor people in our community too. I have no doubt. I have absolutely no doubt there are other families and communities that are at or near survival mode. But we do have to recognize that there has to be this intensified effort in some of these communities because it is a part of the process of stopping this problem that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
And it's not politically popular, like we won't be able to count streets come election time and say, look at all the paved streets, because you won't be able to say, look at all the families who we've saved from the edge of going into that type of life.
Yeah, and I think that the response in any given situation just has to be sort of proportional. And Dr. Gale said it, and it's natural, is that, violence, and we see gun violence and gangs, and that's a consequence of a whole lot of circumstances that have built up because people, they say we have our emotions and we might feel fearful, we might feel aggressive, but to actually act out on it means that you've passed that tipping point.
Yeah.
And I think that where there's a community where violence is so endemic, it's based on a whole multitude of factors. And it's not just economic, because like you said, there's several communities, facing economic. There's people, there's poorer communities, but the level of violence isn't reflected in, let's say, a rural community versus an urban one like Belize City or Belmopan, or even some.
Or I don't even want to give a name to it. I just want to say when a child has a family member who's involved in crime or gangs, or their neighbor does, and they go to sleep every night knowing that they'll hear gunshots and they must drop and get under their bed because that's just how they survive in life. It's a matter of looking at these major needs that people have.
Exactly. So it's looking at the needs and addressing them, at that community level, and like you said, there's data, there's research, there are solutions, and there's things that have worked in other countries. I think that at the same time, it's a sobering topic, but I still think that with that said, just because they do have these sort of resources to find a solution, there's still a glimmer of optimism that I have. So I hope that, I think that is...
But we must.
Exactly.
And I think that's key.
And that's, I think, a silver lining to the discussion is that, there are resources that governments, communities, people can look to try and collaborate to solve the problem.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that you said that, Gavin, because even in our most frustrated moments, You can't just throw your hands up in the air and say, well, that's it.
Yeah.
We have to constantly be looking at solutions, trying things, and we may not always be effective, but the best part is when you're kind of playing catch up is that you have the example of others who've already tested to know if it'll work. So there's just one more element of this conversation that we have around crime. And we want to thank Dr. Gail and Nelma Mortis-Jones for joining us for that. Also want to thank Juliet Simmons talking about mental health in this country. Again, good and bad. Yes, people are comfortable enough to reach out for help, to seek services for mental health. Unfortunately, there are so many of them that there are not enough professionals to keep up with it. So I do hope that some of the things that Juliet spoke about this morning as kind of preventative to maintaining good mental health will be practices we'll all adopt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Including you and me, Gabby.
Right? And I think about it, our eye-openers are some things that I try to put into practice sometimes.
Yeah.
But finally, we want to say thanks to Christy again from Autism Belize, sharing all about the work that she does and their fundraiser. You can buy one of their Pebble bracelets, and 100% of the proceeds will go to Autism Belize and their efforts to spread awareness and to help train persons to deal with, to work with persons with a wide range of disabilities or disorders. And it's not even just restricted to children, so it is very important work. So if you want to support them, you can buy a bracelet or even just visit their website or their Facebook page, try to get in contact and see how you can help the cause.
All right. But that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ.
You can also find us on Instagram at OIE Belize.
And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your heart open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.